Hi folks, well this is take 954. I've got a brand new apron, I hope it stays straight, and tonight I'm going to be showing you how to make this delightful little cherry blossom. So looking full at the camera, not trying to read my notes too much, I'm going to tell you who I am and why I'm here. My name's Lou Wood, I make sugar flowers, and I joined the guild about 30 years ago. I joined in Tewkesbury when there were lots and lots of lovely ladies who were very interested in making sugar flowers, and I just got really enthused about them, and I've loved them ever since. I've been a member on and off ever since, and recently I've become, there it is, a fully accredited demonstrator, so I'm very proud to be demonstrating for you tonight. And I rarely make cakes, but when I do, I generally team up with a fantastic group of people who I can collaborate with. They make the cakes and I make the sugar flowers, so I can concentrate on what is my forte really. I demonstrate online, I quite like doing that. I do classes one-to-one and in groups, so contact me if you want anything like that. I love Zoom demonstrations and things that we can all join in on, and I've seen many more across the year this year than I've ever seen before, so it's been a blessing in disguise really. So I'm going to crack on now and I'm going to show you how to make this lovely little cherry blossom. So thanks for joining me. This is the little arrangement we're going to be making today. We're going to do a flower, a bud and leaves. So I'll start with showing you the cutters and the veiners. So this is what I'm going to use today. These are from the Simply Nature range of cherry leaf veiners and cutters. This is the cherry leaf medium, and then we've got the cherry blossom set. Here I've got 3 veiners from the Robert Haynes range. This is the flower veiner from the blackberry set, so that's the Robert Haynes blackberry set there. Oh, got one missing. That little one there is just a jasmine cutter, a little tiny jasmine cutter, and 2 rose petal cutters that I'm going to use as well. So that's the full set of cutters and veiners for the project today. I'm also going to be using some colours, so whilst I'm telling you about all the kit, I might as well do the colours. I'm going to use claret from Edible Art. I'm going to use white and ruby from Sugar Flare. So those are the colours I'll be using. And it's as simple as that. I shall be using some Sugar Flare gooseberry to colour my paste green. And for the majority of the project, I'm going to be using Smartflex white. Smartflex white flower paste, which I'm going to colour part of the way through using that gooseberry just to make the green for the calyx and the leaves. So that's the equipment that I should be using today. Let's put that over there now. So to get started, I'm going to need to make the buds to begin with. So to make a bud, or a selection of buds, as you can see, I need several different sizes so that you get large, small ones, different stages of development. It just makes it look pretty. So I'll start with making a bud, and all I need is a 28 gauge wire and my tweezers, and I'm going to put a hook in the top of my wire. I'm going to take a small amount of paste, so I get a little tiny ball of my paste. I do want a small ball of paste. These will be about, I should think, a size, let me roll him up. Ooh, this one's probably a size between a 6 and a 7, I should think. He's a bit big for a 6 and a bit small for a 7. So he's probably a fat 6. So I'm going to, and it doesn't matter what size they are, between 5, 6 or 7, as long as you can make a variety. I don't really need much glue. I can put a tiny bit on the end of my hook. This is your usual Tylose powder glue with water and boiled water and a little bit of vodka in there. I use 30 parts of Tylose powder to 1 part of water. No, I don't. I use 30 parts of water to 1 part Tylose powder and some vodka. So I've just twisted that onto the stem, squashed it at the bottom so that it's nice and flat at this edge, unlike a rose comb where you'd make it nice and bulbous. This is flat at the bottom. Then you can roll it a little bit flatter at the sides, and that's all you need to do to it, just to make it cone shaped. That will dry overnight so that they're solid on their stems before you do the next step. Now the next step is equally as easy. Taking a little piece of paste, not very big, because we're going to use these tiny little veiners and cutters from the Simply Nature range now. So I'm going to get the tops and the bottoms for those, and I'm going to cut 4 petals. So that's all I need to go around one of these. So I choose one of my little stems. These are dry now, and all I need to make is 4 little petals for this. So here we go. Fairly thin paste, because the thinner the paste, the nicer the veins will come out on the dusted bud. There we go. One. Let's just get a tool to poke this out with. Here we go. I'm going to put these onto my mat, and I will show you 4 of these. I won't do every petal all the time because it's laborious. Now these are on my pad here, so I'll take you in a little bit closer now to show you this, because these are tiny. I'm going to get a ball tool, so I'm using Cassie Brown's ball tools. I love them, they've got really good grip and they're very light. So I'm just thinning the edges of these so that they're just thinned a little bit, not too much. Then I'm going to take my tweezers and I'll put these just down here, matching the tops to the bottoms. Then I'm going to put 1 in each. 1 on that one, 1 on this one. Then I'll pop the tops on and give them a squeeze, and then we'll pull them out. But they're so tiny, I use my tweezers because they're quite fiddly. Okay, so that's 2. And I'll just do 2 more because, as I said before, I won't do all the petals in this project. I'll have some blue peated up for you, but these are quite quick. 2, 3, 4, there we go. Now once these are done, I need to put some glue around my cone and stick them around. There we go. I'll take you back out now because then it'll give us a little bit more room to work in. So those are my 4 petals that are veined. Using the lid of my jam jar, I'm just going to pour my usual puddle of glue into the centre. If you know me, you know I always have a puddle of glue in the centre of my lids, because when I'm using fine wires, it's perfect for, say, the 35 gauge wire that I'll be using later on. A single dip in there will make it very easy to get just exactly the right amount of glue on the end of a very fine wire. And today I've got a very small brush. This is a 0 size brush. and I'm going to use just a little bit of glue on my brush to coat this cone all the way round. Then I'm going to pick up a petal and I'm going to stick it onto there. And I'm going to just curve it round. Make sure it just goes over the top. I'll stick another one round. We're just edging these round now in quarters, overlapping them as I go. And then by the time we've got 4 on, I don't want it to look like a rose though, so in a minute I'm going to squash the top. That's 4 of them round there, so I'm going to lift this edge and just pop that one in under there, tuck him in and fold that edge back. Then I'm going to close up all these little edges here, but try not to touch the edge too much where I would flatten the veining out, because that's the veining's what I want to keep. Now the top part, I'll take you in closer now because we want to see the top part. Let's move that, and I know it's better on the blue, so let's see if I can angle that away from the light. There you go, you can just about see that now. And that top part's beginning to look a bit like a rose, so with a little tiny bit of glue in there I'm just going to squeeze it inwards and squash it down, just pulling over those flaps there. So hopefully it doesn't or won't look like a rose when it's finished. It'll just look like a folded in, and I won't be able to get this any better, I don't think. It's just the fact that I can't get it close enough for you to see on that colour, or any colour for that matter. I've tried always to get this close enough for you to see, but I'm afraid that's as good as I can get it. But you'll see it when the bud is drier, and perhaps, I don't know whether I can get it on a yellow, perhaps with a yellow. Oh, yellow doesn't do too badly. You can see it's folded over, and I've got some nice veins just there, but we'll come back to that. When it's dried, it'll just need to gasp for a while now until it's dried off a bit. When it's had a few minutes to dry, we can dust it. So now it's had half an hour to harden off, I'm going to colour it. So here's my little bud. He's a little bit firmer now, so he's not quite so damp. So I'm going to take a little bit of the claret and a little bit of the white. Now normally I wouldn't make a very deep colour here, but for the purposes of the camera I think I might need to be a little bit deeper colour than I would normally. Let's see if we can just get that back in focus. That's better. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a fairly strong colour, and I'll probably dust the top even darker in a minute. So I've got my brush loaded up, and I'm just going to hold my brush flat like this, and much the same as you might do with a brass rubbing with the side of a crayon, I'm holding my brush sideways and I'm going to brush across. So I'm going to brush across these veins. So I'm going to brush across the veins, and I'm just going to get the touches on the sides of these. Let's see if we can go closer. Will it focus close? Let's see. There we go. Let me get that close there. You can see I'm just being able to bring up those veins. Try a touch darker. I don't want to colour the whole thing, I just want to bring those veins up. And you can see that by brushing sideways it just brings the veins out. Now I'm going to use some neat claret on the top here. again brushing with the flat of my brush to colour that top a deep colour. And that's as much colour as I want on there. Later on I'm going to dip it, and I've got another one here. Now this one's a larger one, and as you can see at the base the petals haven't come down to the base, but I'm not going to worry about that because the calyx will cover that in a minute, because I made quite a big bud on this one. There we go. I'm just trying to get the veins. Okay, I better not spend too long on this because dusting can be the most boring thing in the world, unless you're doing it, of course, and then it's very therapeutic. But it's like watching paint dry if you're just watching somebody dust. Okay, so I'm just trying to bring up veins, and I'm putting a dark colour on the top. Just like that. So that in a minute we'll finish off. I'll keep those two now, pop them back in my block. That's all I need to do for those, and I'll come back to that colour palette in a minute. Next thing, I'm going to make the calyx. So using a little bit of green now, I'm going to take a small amount of green. This is the plain white Smart Flex coloured with Sugar Flare Gooseberry. Okay, so that's what I'm colouring with. Let's take you back out because she's confused now. She can't focus on anything. There we go. So Sugar Flare Gooseberry. I'm going to make a Mexican hat. Now a lot of people will use this for a Mexican hat. If you don't know what a Mexican hat is, I'm going to show you. A lot of people will take a little bit of paste, push it into a hole, comes out, and you've got like a little hat thing for making a Mexican hat. I don't use that method. I use a different method. I make my own. So I'm going to use my little board. I'll put this on here so you can actually see it against the dark of the board. So I'll pop that onto there. That's it. There you go. And I'll take a little piece of paste. Again, probably a size 6 piece of paste. Little ball, a size 6 ball of paste. And I'm going to roll that into, there we go, that might be better, a cone. Then I'm going to squash the bottom of the cone, squeeze it round, and pop it on my board, just like that. I like to use paintbrush handles for quite a lot of things. So a nice little paintbrush handle, and I roll away. And I lift it with the paintbrush. Use a dry paintbrush, by the way. Don't use your glue brush like I did the other day. I picked up my glue brush and then promptly glued it to the board. But just like this. And that's nice and thin. It forms a static bond now between there and the board. You can slide it about, but it sometimes will stick to the board. So just pop the corn flour between that and the board and you're okay. So this now needs the tiny little cutter that I showed you before, this little jasmine cutter. So I'm going to drop it over the top, give it a wriggle, and then cut it off. Make sure it's well cut and then take it away. So I just push that out of the cutter and I've got a lovely little calyx. So all I need to do to fix it on is to take my glue, and again this is a zero size brush, so it's tiny, it's really quite small. You can see that against my finger, it's not a very thick brush at all. So I'll take a bit of that glue off and just glue each of these little petal pieces here on this stamen calyx, and then I get my little bud that we took earlier. That's our little bud that we've just dusted, and I'm going to push oops, where's my camera? There we go. I'm going to push this into the center and out to the bottom. Don't worry if it's not central at the base here, because you're going to cut that off in a minute. We need to push it up there, and then just ease each of these up around the sides. Obviously these are not buds for competition work, they're just pretty little buds. I'm going to do that, do that there, just to bring that in at the side, and then using my tweezers I'm just going to pinch that piece off at the base, give it a roll, and then I want to, that little piece I need, and I want to push it up so that it forms like a little bulb at the bottom, on a little stump at the bottom of this, just like that. And that's all I need at the base of this flower. That little bud is now done, or as done as he's going to be, until he dries, and then we'll dip him. So we'll dip this along with the petals and the leaves later on, and I'll show you more about that in a bit. So that's a bud. Now, cracking on quickly before everybody goes to sleep, I now need to make some stamen. Let's just pop these out of the way. So put my brush back in there so I don't lose my glue brush. Stamen, I like these. There we go. So that, oh, you won't see that. Let's take you out a little bit further. Stamen. Each of our flower blossoms needs a set of stamen in the centre. So here we have, just inside there, a lovely little set of stamen. You will use this method for roses, if you're making wild roses and things like that, so open roses, and it's a very simple method. So here we go, making the stamen. You're going to need cotton, you're going to need a 28 gauge wire, you're going to need some of this. This is semolina, fine semolina with a mixture of colours in it. It's got terracotta, it's got orange, and it's got yellow, and that's sugar flare dusts that I've put into this just to colour it. And so now, in order to make it simple, if you're making a lot of flowers, your cotton goes everywhere all the time, so I use a tool like this just to stick it into a green foam block, and then I drop that on the top of it and it spins round. So I'll stick that in my green foam, and I'm now going to take 20 winds of thread around my fingers. Now I'm going to do it round 3 fingers. You can do it round fewer if you wish, but I find this easier to do round 3 fingers. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, so that's 20 rounds of my fingers there, and I'll just chop that off. You can use more or fewer if you wish, more or less. I'm going to take it off my fingers and twist it, and then pop it back on to my one finger. Then I'm going to take my 28 gauge wire and push it underneath all of them so that it gathers them all up, and then I'm going to, about there, I'm going to bend it over like that, making sure I pull tight with my left hand here and hold on to the cotton. I'm going to cross these wires over, then I'm going to twist them very tightly till they're all twisted in, and that's the beginning of my stamen. I've got a nice loop of cotton nicely attached to my wire. So next thing I'm going to need is some 1/4 width Florists Tape. So I'm going to pull that to release the glue, and then I attach that down here just below where we've made the, let Let's see if I can get you a little closer to that. Not that you can't see it, I think you're okay. So we're taking it just there, just below the twists. Fold it over, crease it so it sticks to itself, and then twizzle. So I'm twizzling with my right finger and thumb, and I'm pressing with these two. And this I'm pulling with my left finger and thumb. So I'm tensioning here, and I'm angling upwards. I'm angling the tape upwards towards the cotton threads, so that it's just going upwards towards the cotton threads. And every so often I let go and move my fingers. Once it gets to the cotton threads, they start to, you can feel it's awkward. So I pull the cotton threads together with my left hand, and then I hold the bottom of them with my right finger and thumb, so that when the green tape goes onto them, my finger and thumb on my right hand here are beginning to squash them together. So I level out with my left hand so that it goes straight here now, twizzling round a couple of times and then coming back down. And keep going. Don't worry if it's missed a little bit, we can always go over that later, but it won't show. And then I'm just going to twizzle all the way down. I keep the tension on my left hand by holding the tape here. So the tape's held in my fingers there. The tape's actually held in my fingers here. And then you can see as it's coming through my fingers down here. And the tension's being held at that point there. And as I twist it, it's pulling the tape through, but tensioning it at the same time. Now this needs to be cut off. You need a sharp pair of scissors. If you were making stamen for roses, you could leave it long, but I'm not. I want short stamen today, so I'm going to cut it about here. I'm going to cut it straight across. Try not to get any raggedy bits like that bit there. Didn't want that raggedy bit, so trim off the raggedy bits, otherwise you'll catch them in your pollen in a minute. So there we have the beginnings of the stamen. Now I'm going to spin it. Oops. Okay, so that's given me separated cotton threads. Now the next bit I need is some high tack no sew fabric glue and a little piece of perspex or a bit of grease proof or something that you can throw away afterwards or wipe clean. I'm going to put a little squirt of the glue onto there. You just want something that you can clean that isn't going to stick to your board too much. And a blob of water. Oh, far too much there. Too big a hole in that one. I'll tip a little bit of that away. Didn't need all that water, I just needed a drop of water on there. And I need an oldish brush, or one that I can just wash and not worry about. So I'll mix that up. This is just like kids PVA glue, only it's a bit faster drying. And I've spread it out and there's not much on there. And the reason I'll put that to wash now. The reason it's spread out is so that I can do this and there won't be too much soaked into the ends of the cotton. If you make a deep puddle, you'll have loads stuck on the end of cotton. But as you can see from that, there's not much on there. There's not a great deal on there at all. Okay, so I'll get my little bit of pollen, dip it in my pollen, give it a dibble about. If you've been light with the glue, or if I've been light with the glue, I shall have a nice amount of pollen on there and it'll be quite good. Oh, not too bad. Bit clumpy in places, so I'm going to put a box under my table and I'm going to spin it like I did before to free up the threads. I'm going to spin it and you can hear the pollen spinning off. So now I've got a much lighter covering of pollen and that's far better for me. You can put it back in again and put some bits back on, And if you're really fussy and want to give it better colour but not clumpage, there you go. I think that's lovely. So that's perfect. I'm going to put this back in the pot now because I hit it flying earlier on and had to clean everything up. So I'm going to put that back in there now. So that's your stamen. That's all you need to do to create your stamen. And we need to get rid of this. Oops, let's get rid of that. There we go. So I won't put anything on it. And now make petals. The petals are the beauty of this little gem. We need a selection of petals. So these little flowers each have 3 tiny petals in the middle, 3 or 4 or 6 or more, but I go for 3 because when you're making a cake you actually want to be economical with your time. So 3 is sufficient for around the outside, and then 6 around the actual outer edge. Oh, a little bit dropped off there, not to worry. 6 around the outer edge is enough to make a nice little flower. So 3 central, 3 around the medium size, and 3 large. So small, medium and large. And those are the ones that we're going to use Robert Haynes's blackberry veiners for, and the 2 little rose cutters. So the rose cutter, the larger of the rose cutters will go with the larger of the petals there, and oh, wrong one, where is this one? There he is. The slightly smaller petal goes with the slightly smaller cutter there, and that's what forms our outer petals. And then those little tiny inner ones, the 3 inner ones, are made with this little tiny chap again for the center, like we used before. So that'll form the petals for our flower. And here we go. Like I said to you, I won't make all of the petals. I've got lovely blue Petals ready for you. Okay, so nice piece of white paste. You don't need a lot. In fact, you need very, very little. So here we go, a little bit of paste. I'm going to get a bit of tissue. No, I'm not going to use my cloth there. Then I'm going to get a bit of tissue to clean that because it's a little bit, I've got some pollen on it. And my lovely white petals are going to be a shade of red. There we go. So these are nice little petals. I'm going to use Twiddle and Splat for these because the large one and the medium one come out beautifully if you use Twiddle and Splat. If you're doing a lot of them, then you might roll a sausage and roll away and do lots and lots and lots in a production line. But for the purposes of our demonstration today, Twiddle and Splat's a nice option. So those are the, I'm going to cut the large petal and I'm going to cut a medium petal. I'll show you one of each and then it'll be up to you to make millions of the others. Depending on how much cherry blossom you want to make yourself. So I will just pop that onto my blue pad. So I've got a medium size and I've got a large size. So that's my large veiner. That's going to be my medium veiner. So again, spread it nicely, not too thinly, but to give you a nice shape. I get 35 gauge wires for these. Now 35 gauge wires can be difficult to get. Don't worry if you can't get them. If you've got 30s, that will be fine. If you want 35 gauge wires, I get mine from the old bakery at Taunton, and they do wires and Stamen, so that's where I get my Stamen and wires from. Now this little chap, I'm going to put that on there. I need a tiny little piece of paste now So I'm going to get a little tiny piece of paste on my finger, and it is tiny too. You don't necessarily need glue. It depends on how sticky your paste is. If you do need a little bit of glue, then like I said before, one single dip in my little puddle, and I can put that on the end of there, wrap it round and twizzle it. Now for me, my paste didn't really need that dip, but that's enough. That's on. Okay, so I've got a nice twizzle on the end of my wire there, and I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to put the tiniest amount of glue just there, and I'm going to pop that on it, press, turn over and press again. Then this is my medium petal. I've got a nice bag of corn flour here in my trusty pop sock. Touch it there, and it's enough corn flour on there. For those of you that don't know about corn flour pop socks, contact me and I'll tell you. I'm sure you all know about corn flour pop socks, perhaps not. If you get a new pop sock and you fill it with a good tablespoon or two of corn flour, twist the top round and then pull it in on itself and tie the top again so that it's doubled over. They make excellent corn flour bags because you can walk them like this. If you roll them, you don't get a great amount of corn flour on your boards, so they're great fun to use and very well, very good for flowers. So I'm going to put that on the top of there and give it a press, and that makes a delicious little petal. Now these are the medium, this is a medium-sized petal, so I'm going to put it into my little pad here and I'm going to cup the center, and that's it. You make lots and lots of medium-sized petals depending on how many flowers you actually want to make, and they'll all be the same. So I've got a larger petal here. You can thin with your finger if you want to. Again, you would take a small amount of paste, pick up your wire. You can dip your wire, fold the paste around the end of your wire, twizzle it. If it goes off the end, just fold it over and give it another twizzle. A little bit of glue just on there. Well, it's a bit much on that one, but still be all right. Pop your twizzle stick on there, give it a press, turn it over, press it again, and then pop it into your veiner. Oh no, give it its corn flour first. I like to give it its corn flour first. Touch it on my pop sock corn flour. Give it a little bit of corn flour first so it doesn't stick in your veiner. Now this one I'm going to show you something different, because can you see the deliberate mistake? My petal is bigger than my veiner. Uh-oh. Now normally that's a bit of a crisis with the petal, because then you get all the edge markings, but because these are such versatile little petals, I'm going to pop the veiner back on. I've pulled the petal out, moved it back, I'm going to pop the veiner back on, and I'm just going to press this edge here, give that a press, lift it up, move it over, just press on this edge now at this side, and you've got perfectly veined little petal. Because they're so wrinkled anyway, it doesn't show. If I was to do that with a rose, I would probably have a V shape in here, and it wouldn't be very good at all, but it works for this one. So here we go, pop that in there, give it a nice cup in the middle, and then you've got a lovely wonky shape around the edge. So you need 6 each of these large ones, 3 of these smaller ones, and then I'm going to show you the little tiny ones, which are a little bit different. The little tiny 3 that you put in the middle, you have to roll a little bit thicker. So here she goes. We need the little tiny cutters and the little tiny veiner that we used before. and we just need 3 petals for that centerpiece. But we need to roll fairly thickly, because for this one that 35 gauge wire is going directly into the paste. So there we go. 1. I'm going to put them straight onto my blue pad, and I'll show you what I'm going to do. Well, I don't need 3 really, but it'll give you an idea. And I will take you closer, because this one's nice close. Right, here we go. Don't worry that I've poked little holes in with my tweezers. They'll disappear in a minute. So I'm going to get my little bit of glue, and I'm going to do 1 dip in my glue, because as you can see that's just enough on the end of there now. You can just see it. And I'm going to hold it close to the end. I'll move those out of the way because I only need to show you one. So putting my petal close to the edge of my board, put my finger on the top of it, and then just push it into the paste, and it's in there. Simple as that. Simples. And that's all you need to do to those center petals. Thin, thin with the ball tool, and then pop it into its little veiner. God, these are tiny there. And then pop his little lid on, make sure he's lined up, give him a squash, and then take him out. There's one little thing we need to do more now. We need to curve this over. We cup him up so that he will come around. When he's on, he will come around those stamen when he's on and dried. Okay, so pop him in there as well and give him a little cup. Oh, silly me. Give him a little cup. All right, so he's cupped up. The medium one's cupped up, and the large one's cupped up now. So all 3 of those are ready. So 6, 3, 3. And that's all you have to do. Make lots of those for each of the flowers you're going to make. Now for my next trick, it's leaves. I shall be back. Okay, I'm back. I've got my cell board, my veining board, ready to make the leaves. I've got some of the gooseberry coloured flower paste now, and I've also got the medium cherry leaf veiner and a 30 gauge wire. So we're going to make a leaf now, and I'm going to have some well kneaded paste, and I'm going to take a little piece of this. Leaves are beautiful to make. You can make multiple leaves on these boards. The veins up here are where the wires go, so I'm going to start with just one today though, but if you want to make multiples you can. I roll towards me first so that it's pushed into the groove here, and then I'll roll away from me, then I roll to the sides, and I try and avoid the pressure too much here, and I push pressure on this end more so than on the end that's towards me, so that I get a thinner edge here. So I'll roll away on that edge. Okay, now you can see where the wire will go. On my leaf, I don't want the wire to travel right up through. I only want the wire up to about there. So a quarter of the way in probably for me. So if my wire groove ends here, I think I just need the wire groove there, I usually cut my paste off, and the reason I cut my paste off is because I get a clean edge. So if I put my leaf there, I know that my wire groove ends up here, so I can cut along the base and peel away my paste, and I'll show you why I've done that. If you look down there, you can see a completely flat edge. Where's my little knife? You can see a completely flat edge just there, and that gives me an edge to push that wire into, which is easier to push a wire into than it is taking it out of the paste, taking it off the board and trying to put it into paste like this would be. So that's just my way there. So I put it here, and I make sure that the point of the leaf here is directly above, vertically above the base of the leaf. You don't want your leaf off center, so it's directly above. So I push down and I pull away from the sides like that. The reason I pull away is because it pulls all the serrations up. I'll just make sure, because I didn't pull that cleanly, I'll just cut that off at the base again. There we go. Now I've got a 30 gauge wire, and I'll dip it in a little bit of my glue. I don't need very much at all. Then I'm going to push that wire up through here. So I push it in there in the gully, and I'm just, you can see that going up through the paste. I'm going to push it to there, and as you can see, that's in there now. Whoops, can you see that? I think you can. I don't think it needs to be too focused. Anyway, there we go. I'll just push down on that now. I put a little bit of corn flour on it, so I'll walk my corn flour over the top, and now I'm going to lift this edge and peel back, taking it out of the gully, the vein. Now these, I'll move him over there a second, these are beautiful veiners. Sometimes there's a lot more to them than at first appears. If you look at this and you bend it backwards, you'll see that that vein in the center is a lot bigger than it at first appears, and sometimes you'll get your leaves stuck in these, because unless you bend them backwards they don't come out, and you'll lose the wires in them. These are beautiful. The same thing, they've got gorgeous veins, and then if you open them up, you have to open them up to get the leaves out sometimes. Let me show you this one. This one is magnificent. Come along, focus, thank you very much. There we go. This one has got a bend in it just here, and that, oh, just there, and that will cut your paste if you're not careful. When you put the lid on it, it will make a crease and cut it. So you have to edge it into that gradually, and then once it's in and you want to get your leaf out, you have to open your leaf, twist it like this to release the leaf, and then with this end where my thumbs are, you have to turn the leaf over and pull upwards so that it opens out the veiner like that, and opens it out and drops it out. And I find that that's the best way to get this leaf out, is to actually just pull it back towards you like that and drop it out onto your board. And this one is very similar, so I'm going to show you in a minute this one now. I'm going to use this one for that. So that goes into there, and we pop his lid on, give him a nice squeeze. It doesn't have to be rammed into these veiners, they take beautiful veins. And see, he's in there now. I'll take the top off. I don't want to lose the bottom of it either. See look, it's partly on, partly off, so I'll wriggle it, lift it, there we go. Oh, beautiful point. Wriggle it to loosen it, get my thumbs under it. Now that, as you can see, is out, but it's not out at the base. So in order to get it out at the base, I want to pull the veiner back and tip it off. And there you've got a gorgeous vein at the back of this one. Now, oh, don't fly away. I'll hold on to it for a minute whilst I just dust away the cornflour. There we go. This brush is incredibly soft. It's such a soft brush. So there you've got your leaf with your vein up the back. The next thing I need to do is to get my trusty piece of foil, which I have creased and bent between my fingers, just like that. And then I'll put that into there, pop it down in the middle, and then depending how curved I want it, I'll just make it curved a little bit and then open him out, and it'll dry in there nicely. Just let my leaves dry in those, and if you do need to dry them off, then you put them in the dryer. They dry well in foil. The next thing I need to do with it will be to dust it. It needs to be leathery to dust, but today I'm going to have to dust, for the purposes of the camera, I shall have to dust a dry leaf. So we're going to dust the buds. Oh, we've dusted the bud. We're going to dust the petals and the leaf together now. So I'll clear away and get some colours out. Okay, I'm back. I've now got the colours and the petals that are dried. So the petals are dry completely. They don't dust well if you try and do these on damp stems. So here's my Blue Peter petals, and I've put the large ones at the moment all together in a line. So if you're doing lots of them, get them together in lines. You can do quite a lot of these all in one go. I can get a whole stack of these in a line and do them all together. I've got the claret and some white, and you can make this as pale or as dark as you want. And all we need is a hint of colour. So I've put them in a line, and I'm going to turn them over so that I'm brushing from back to front. And I'm going to brush straight across them. There you go. Let's get where you can see it. There we go. Back to front. That way the back veins will have just a tiny amount, but mostly, and I'll try and bring that up for the camera a little bit darker, you'll get a dark edge. And I get that, let's see if I can do it better on there. Will it come up? Yeah, there's a better focus on that. Okay, so I've got just the dark edge. Here we go. Oh, so I've brushed from back to front, and there's no colour on those fronts. And if I want a little bit of colour in the middle, then I can just brush into there a little bit of colour. But I'm trying to do these all in lumps, all in one goes, so that there's very, very few bits of fiddling to do. So I'm going to get my medium ones now, medium chaps, bit more, there we go, bit of colour, not too much, going to do these very lightly. There you are. And that's as much as I want to put on those. Oh, that's glary, isn't it? That's not very good. Let's go back. Can I get rid of a light? Will that take it out? Make it better? Come along, focus. Focus. Focus, focus. Come along. Oh, you must be able to see that. Come on, camera. You could see it just now. That's better, thank you. Right, we're nearly there. Okay, I won't waste too much time, but you get the general gist of it. You can go that way if you want to and just make a dark edge, but it depends on how dark a colour you want on your flowers. Oh, get in the shot. There we go. No, sorry, it's not going to go, is it? White, let's do it on white. White on white, maybe that will be better. There we go. Oh, zippity doo dah. There we go. Look at that. So that's much better. And then these little tiny ones that go in the centre, again, fit them all together, slot them in. And as there's only 3 that I need to do, I'll pop those together. There you go. And just give them a little tiny bit of colour on the edge, just brushing across that top edge. And if you brush from back to front, this little curve over just takes a little bit more of the colour into the veins there, and it gives it a little bit more colour than if you brush from front to back. If you brush from front to back, you get a crisper edge. Not going to get crisp anything today with that focus, am I? Oh, thank you, nearly. Have a little snooze, come back to me later. Come on, you must get focused on that, surely. There's nothing else in the picture. Oh. Well, that's about as good as I can get that for now, without sending you all to sleep completely. But that's small, medium and large petals, all dusted with a little bit of colour, and it's as quick as that. You don't need to do anything else other than just dust a little bit of colour onto them. Now the next thing I need to do is to put all those in a little pile, because I'll come back to them in a second. Next I need the lethal stuff, so I'm going to put that over there and I'll pop those onto that side. These are lethal reds. So this ruby on the leaf is gorgeous, but I will put my gloves on for this because it's absolutely vile on your hands. So I'm coming in with the gloves. Animals. Okay, here we go, gloves. This is ruby, and I'm going to use a larger brush for this. And I'm going to load my brush with ruby, and oh, I better put those out of the way, otherwise they're going to have ruby petals as well. There we go. These leaves are gorgeous, so using the leaf upside down, hopefully in a leathery, a very leathery state, perhaps almost dry but not quite. I'm having to use one that's dry today, but in an almost leathery state. You can do it dry, but I'll tell you what happens when it's dry. I'm going to brush upwards, so I'm putting it on the edge of there and I'm brushing upwards towards the ceiling, and you can see from this now what's happening, and I'll show you if you can't. Okay, so that now has got a lot of flick on it where it's gone on the edge, and it's red the edge, it's reddened the edge. Let's see if we can see it better. It's reddened the edge and it's flicked onto the top surface. But if I was to dip that now, that edge would just disappear and melt off in the box of dip, because it's dry, it's got nothing to stick to. So before I can dip that, I need to steam it slightly just to stick it to the flower, to the leaf. And that will make a lovely, it'll all run down those veins eventually if I dip it. The difference between dipping and steaming for me is that when I steam, it sets the colours, but if you dip, it actually blends them. When you make a watercolour, the colours blend in together because you can run the water down them. Down a picture, you can run the water through it. But if you use a dip, that's what I feel happens. The colours all meld together. Now I'm going to show you if I brush from this side and I brush downwards from this side, I get a very strong edge. And I want that red tip. I want a beautiful red tip on here. Now, I'm going to brush upwards for a minute. I'm going to show you what happens if I brush upwards. If you brush upwards with not too much on your brush, I'm going to get my little squiffer and you can see there that I've blown away with my little blower thing, not too far, but you've got like a beginnings here of the colour coming into the leaf. And I'm going to continue to brush just here so that it flicks into the leaf itself. And then when I get it into the dip, it's going to make a shade on that edge. Can you see it coming there? Because you don't want it to be heavy. Oh, I don't want it to be heavy. Don't want it to be heavily laden. I'll do it that side. If this was a damp petal, a leaf, that would take quite readily, but I'm having to brush a little bit to build the colour up. All right, so there's my leaf colours. When I dip in a minute, that colour will come up beautifully. All right. And the edge will be gorgeous. This little chap needs to be coloured slightly differently in as much as he'll have a red edge, so I'll turn him over and give him a red edge, but he needs to be coloured more completely as an orangey red leaf, so I'm just going to give him an all over coating of red to bring up his veins. And then on the top he has like a brass rubbing effect. I've put no more colour on my brush, but I'm just giving him like a brass rubbing colour so that he makes an orangey glow when he's dipped. And that's just the flat of the brush bringing up those veins. Okay, so that's just the top, and he's got a different kind of a look to him now. So he'll have that kind of, there he is. And he'll have that look, as if he's a new leaf that's got some colour. Now I'm going to take my gloves off and get my little dip box ready, and I'll be back again in a second. Here's one. I have returned. We have all the component parts now that we've created for our flower. We've got the stamen, we've got the leaves, we've got all the petals in the different sizes, and we've got our bud. All of these need to be dipped now because they've all got colour on them, or they've got stamen, etc., that have got the pollen on. So I'm going to dip these to seal them. This is my dip box, and in here I've got a liquid made up of 90 parts of the culprit dip-in solution, which is the food grade ethanol 96%. Don't get the other ones because you can get ethanol that isn't 96%. And the 10% of confectioner's glaze. And it's just enough, it doesn't make anything shine, it's just enough to seal any dusts. So I'm going to dip my petals. But again, if I'm making a cake, I don't want to be fiddling around doing loads and loads of dipping. So I can put all of these little petals together, just like this, in my hand, just like that, and go whizzy, whizzy, whizzy in the dip. And I now need a box under my table, or wherever you care to put it, that isn't going to get splatter everywhere. And you can shake the excess off into a box, and if I show you, see, look, the splats will go everywhere. So in my little box, but they don't take long to dry, so if I just space them out on there, they'll be dry in seconds. And again, I'll take the little petals, shake them in my box, shake off the excess, and they'll dry. I'm even going to dip this. It won't hurt the stamen. Spin that like we spun earlier on. We spun it like this, and that sealed the stamen. Now the bud, just the same. Plop it in there, give it a shake, spin it to get the excess off. Give it a good spin in your box. There you go. And now the leaves. Leaves are a little bit different. You will have to spin the leaf like that, hold it in your hand and spin it like that in your box. But the leaves are beautiful. I love doing leaves. Cool. By the time that dries, it's going to be delicious. Love doing leaves. Yeah, that's a little bit of a spin, and she's dry, and the colours are on her. They've melded down. Now this chap, oh, look at that. Oh. Sometimes you'll get a little bit of colour drip off the tip there. Look, you just see a little bit of colour dripping into the box off that tip, but most of the colour stays on the leaf, especially if you do it damp. And if you're doing a dry leaf, as I said before, make sure you give it a little bit of steam just before you dip it, so that it allows the colour to stay on there. Look at that. That's the back. So you've got some colours on the back, and it's mellowed it completely on that front there. Look now. So those are all dipped, sealed, and the colours will have now mellowed. I'm going to put my box of glaze away so that I don't die of, well, I won't die of anything. I'll be certainly drunk on the fumes. Okay, that is all the pieces we need now to put our blossoms together. So we'll start with the blossom. Okay, I'm just going to get some 1/4 width tape and the stamen and the petals. Okay. Do the bud next. Here we go, here's our petals. We've got an assortment of large, medium and small, so that's a large one. They get a little bit muddled up, but there we go, I can tell the difference. So 1/4 width tape, and I'm going to start with the stamen, attach my 1/4 width tape, and then roll it up to the top. I start with the 3 little tiny petals that we made, and I put them right next to the stamen there. Tilt them back a little bit. Now you need your tweezers for this, because I get a bit over eager and I just bend the petals, and then they break off invariably as eager beaver. So tilt them back at about 45 degrees so that they don't break off. I'll put 3 in, but you can do them one at a time and wrap them if you want to. And sometimes it's good to do it loosely first so that you can move things. So I've got the first 3 in there like that. Now how good is this at the light? There we go. Now I need to get the 3 medium-sized ones. So 1, 2, I think that's the medium one. I may have more than 3 medium ones here. I think I might have 6 medium ones. So tilt them back and start adding these just in between the gaps and wherever you think they look nice. So tilt him back, and I'm going to add him in this side. Okay, so I'm just going to put those 3 on like that. I wrap it, and then that's just loosely wrapped at the moment, so I can still move them. Then I'll pull it tight and give it one turn. So that's 3 in there. If you're making them for yourself and it doesn't matter how long or how many you put in, then you can put as many as you want in. But if you're doing it for business purposes, then 3's fine on that layer. Now these chaps just go in all the way around now, building up the 6 outer petals. You could do it 3 and 3 and tape 3 and 3. I find that's quite useful because it's easier to handle. Or you can just whack 6 in if you want, if you're confident enough to just go around with 6 petals. There we go. And this is the flower almost finished. Oops. Because once we've finished the flower, oh, he's moved around. I'll give them a little bit of a taping in to get them a bit firmer. More haste, less speed, just chill. And if there's anybody out there that is asleep, they've probably just relaxed into it. Okay, so that is a blossom. One cherry blossom. I'll give it a few turns of the tape at the top now just to secure it and to build up a small, well, it's not a calyx, it's just a little bump at the top before I bring it down the wires. At this point you can change to half width tape if you want to, and I might do that now because then it will give me a better stem. Here we go, half width tape. That's it. Then that will make a nice tidy stem now, because these little stems arch over and they will be seen. That's it. So that little chap is our blossom for today. Oh, come on. Come on, camera. Okay. Pretty little blossom. And I'm going to give it a bend because that's how they will be in a minute when we add them to the little arrangement we're going to use. The next thing I'm going to do is to put some tape on the bird. So we have our bird. I'm just going to quickly tape up to the top of the bird. So I started further down, tape to the top just underneath the little bobbly bit, and then twizzle it, keeping the tension. As I said to you before, I keep the tension with these 2 fingers here so that I can hold it there, and I squeeze it there and tension it there, and this one just twizzles. The right hand just twizzles, so the left hand does the tensioning and the squeezing. So that now has got a nice long stem, and again we need these nice and long so that they too can arch over. Okay, so they can go along with their little buddies. Okay, so those are spare petals. Now the leaves we need to put together in a small arrangement. So you need a variety of different leaves. So you make the leaves in different sizes. So we made small leaves, big leaves, and glazed leaves. There we go. So there's an array of leaves there that we've got to work with. So that's the one we just dipped, and this little chap. So I won't use all of those, but I'm going to show you how we make this little crown of leaves that goes with each of the stems. So what I do is I make little sprays of flowers that then I will put together on a long stem, and it makes as big or as smaller an arrangement as you want. So I'll do the leaves now. These leaves just need a little bit of tape on the wire. So I'll tape it there and then push it up to the leaf and then twizzle down. You don't have to tape the whole leaf if you don't want to. I start further down because it's easy, and then push up under the leaf. And then when I've got them taped, it gives a little bit of grip when you start to put them together, because sometimes they will sort of swivel because they're very they're quite large, these leaves. So that's the one we did today. I'm going to use him, and I'm going to use that one. So I'll put those two together. Actually, I might put three together. 3 or 2. No, I'll have 3. I think I'll have him at the front. I'll perhaps put 3 because that looks nice. 3 nice fresh leaves. Now I'm going to go over to half width tape at this point because I'm starting to get more stems. There we go. Half width tape, just twizzle that in there. So I've joined that up now. I'm keeping my stems purposely short because otherwise underneath the camera's only here. I did it earlier on and I had to refilm because I kept hitting the camera. So I've got all the stems very short at the moment. But normally you would have a longer stem to work with. But today I'm on shorts. These ones, bend it back at right angles and pop it in facing that way. Okay, so this one can go in facing the opposite way, as can another one. Let's have a little one. I'm going to pop a little one in, turn him at right angles and face him the other way. That way you're beginning to make a crown. And it's as if they've just sort of unrolled themselves and they've come out from hiding. They've just burst out. You can use there are some tiny little ones. I showed you in that cherry leaf set. There's also a tiny little leaf and a tiny veiner that you can make these absolutely tiny leaves, these ones. And I didn't make those today, but if you want to make those yourself, they're exactly the same, and you can put those into the center in there, and they do make lovely little additions to there's another one there. They make a lovely addition that you can pop in to just the middle, and I'll pop him in there. And when you're doing this, if it's getting difficult to get up under here, start further down and work back up with the tape. I've gone back to 1/4 width tape here for these tiny little leaves because it's easier to get up underneath, and then work my way back down the stem. So that's just tape that in. So you can see now I've got a nice little bunch of leaves. They don't have to be uniform, they can be all over the place. You could have that one going up there, you could have one coming in here just to sit in there as if it's all come out together. But arrange your leaves so that they look the way you want them to look for the display you're making. I'm going to call it time on those because I want to do the buds and the flowers. So here's my Blue Peter buds. Here's some I made earlier. There you go. And some blossoms. A couple more blossoms. So you make your blossoms and you make as many or as few as you'd like, and you get all their stems together in groups of 3 or 4 or 6 or 2, however many you want, and you tape them all together. Oh, there's another one. I'm going to pop him in there as well because I love bunches of these because it's such a beautiful flower. If you're making an arrangement where you've got roses and other beautiful flowers together, you can just use these in between, just a few of them. You don't have to make a whole arrangement with these. So I'm just taping them together so that I've got one stem of these lovely little chaps, and they're all bending outwards or over and down. Okay, like that. I'll put those there. Let's come back this way a little bit. As for these, well, they're exactly the same depending on how you want to use them. You can use them in 2s or 3s or 5s, 4s, whatever you want, and don't put them at regular even heights. Make them into different heights so that they, when they arch over, they're at different heights when they're in your arrangement. I'm going to put these all together because I do quite like them. So that one can come up over there because he's going to look nice. Okay, I'll put 2 separate ones, I'll put those somewhere else because I think they'll look nice just as an odd addition. Sometimes it's nice to be just a little bit odd. So I've just twisted that together because they're all taped right to the base. All these are taped right to the base. And then we can just make sure they all untangle a little bit because they do get tangled when you tape them. All right, and then you just look at your arrangement. Now whether you want those on the top or whether you like them underneath, coming out from underneath. I do like a lot of them coming out from underneath because then the other flowers that I have, well, sometimes on the leaves, I like to put on the top. So those are going underneath for this one. And then my other 2 that I've saved, I'm going to put here because they will be just underneath the leaves. And I'm going to tape all that in together now. I'm still on half width tape. And if I wasn't underneath the camera, I would be on a longer wire, and the chances are I would have extended it now into a 20 gauge wire to be going down a longer cake. There we go. So that's my start of my arrangement there. And these chaps are just coming out at the top there. And then you just push these around because that's why they're on springy wires, so that you can move them. And my leaves will then bend slightly backwards, so you have a bend at the top of them, so bend their stem, and then they sit just in the top. Now I'm going to bend that leaf up out of the way because in this arrangement he's not sitting comfortably. And then you pop your leaves in the top there so that they all appear. Now it depends what you're going to do with this as well, and whether you're sitting against a cake or whether your part of the arrangement is in the middle or whether you need to extend your arrangement where the stem is coming out of the top. But today my arrangement is such that I want the leaves on the top of there, and these are coming out over the front. So I'm going to use my tweezers now, and I'm going to bend this one. This chap here needs to bend forward and come over, and this one needs to bend a bit as well so I can actually see my leaves. Then that one can come up and be part of the leaves there. And then I've got my buds and my spray at the side there. And so these, as I say, just build up gradually, and then I tape the leaves in at the back. It's quite difficult doing it with such short stems under the camera, but I could do with longer stems to work with, but it just makes it a little bit awkward for keeping it down without bashing the camera. And that is a little stem of leaves and flowers, which you can then put together with more stems of leaves and flowers to make bigger pieces and larger cherry blossom arrangements, depending on how long you want to make your cherry blossom arrangement. So we've done buds, we've done stamen, petals, leaves, dipping, colouring, and we've now made cherry blossoms, leaves and buds. So I hope you've enjoyed my time with you today. I certainly enjoyed it, and I hope you've learned something useful to take away. If you're interested in what I do, then please get in touch, either via my website or Facebook or email or the Guild, and I'd be happy to demonstrate. Thanks ever so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.